Good morning, Amy. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Alexis. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, excited to dive into Leo season today. That's what we're going to be covering and exploring. And yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I say this every season, excited to move from one to the other. And Cancer season was definitely a lot of feeling and going deep and slowing down. And as much as I wanted to, um, do, it was a lot of like slowing down and moving into the flow, which is very much Cancer season. And as we move into Leo season, Leo is about creativity and expression and expressing our unique kind of way that we want to express in the world. It's the sun is home in Leo, so the sun's coming home, which is just a place that the sun shines its radiance. It's like, this is who I am. So we get to feel that. We each get to feel that. And happy birthday to all our Leos out there. But yeah, we're going to dive into all the goodness of Leo season today.
Yeah, getting up. Happy birthday, Leos. Let's, make sure that your unique creative expression is in the highest. Because the sun moves into Leo on the 22nd of July. And like Alexa said, that brings the sun home. And the sun is just at its, I like the fact that when we're in Cancer, that's the moon's home. And now we visited the moon's home, and now we're moving into the sun's home in this time of year where, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, while our days are shortening, we are definitely feeling the intensity and power of the sun. Alexis and I were just chatting about the heat and how cranked up it is right now.
Yeah, it is for sure. And also, Leo is connected to the heart. So I feel like it's tuning into that creative expression, but it's really like tuning into what you're passionate about. It's not living someone else's dream or, working for someone else and creating their vision. It's really like tuning into what lights you up. What are you passionate about? Really having that heart connection of what you love is really important, because that's where that creation comes from for Leo. It comes from the heart. And also July 22nd, which is the day that the sun moves into Leo, is Mary Magdalene's feast day. And she, to me, is very much about the heart and that heart connection. So that's just another piece to bring in there. As the sun moves into Leo, the heart is a really big piece of Leo too. And that courage, when you feel into the courage it takes to express from the heart, to be vulnerable. Its symbol is the lion. So there's that inner strength and courage that comes as well. So we're gonna, this is what we're moving into. So we get to kind of feel into that and really tune in what we love, to have the courage to move towards it. Mm-hmm. And for it to give yourself permission to really enjoy it, to really, move into that joy and passion of what you enjoy.
Yeah, that's so important. The courage to move toward what we love, and towards what our heart calls for, because we are so often trained in this world to go towards what is rational or what makes sense in our heads, rather than follow the call of the heart. And Leo season really, really is about following the call of your heart. Like, that flag is out there waving, chase it down.
Yeah. And as we move into the beginning of Leo season, one of the first big aspects we have is on July 25th, we have Venus squaring Jupiter. And to me, those two energies are very much about like tuning into what we love, right? And expanding into what we love. But it's a square. So there's some places to look at of like, where are we not giving ourselves that full permission? And Venus is in Cancer. So there's that very soft and like tuning into our emotions and like tuning into really, what is that intuitive part of us telling us? And then Jupiter is in Aries, where he's like expanding that kind of spark, that like initiatory spark. So you can feel there's a difference between those two. And so in that square, there may be this kind of finding that happy medium of like tuning into what I love, and also, but not in the push, because Aries sometimes in its shadow can be a push, and it's like highest it can be that really passionate spark that I think goes well with that Leo, right? Like expression. So when you can tune into like tuning into yourself, what you really love, giving yourself permission to like be ignited, and not in the push energy, not like trying to make things happen or doing what you think you should be doing. I think there will be that happy medium as we open Leo season, because that's on the 25th, right? As we like start Leo season.
Yeah. And keeping in mind that if, both Aries and Cancer are cardinal signs, so they both come with a spark. Cancer's spark is just different. It's a different type of start. It's a different type of go. And just as Aries can push in its shadow, Cancer can be like, and I'm in my shell, not gonna do it. I got my crab claws out and I'm not gonna do it. So there's a softening that can happen with both of these sparks. And sparks can create really beautiful fires if there's not a shutdown and a push, which feels like that's where the conflict is going to come, with one party pushing and one party shutting down, rather than both parties just standing right in their center. Yeah. Like Jupiter in his center, Venus in her center. And how do we use this square as propulsion, as the spark to overcome?
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like a big part of that is really listening to and trusting your intuition, and then acting on it. Because it's two parts, right? Like you can hear things, but if you don't move and do according to what you know is true, there's that shutdown, like you said. It's just like hiding in my shell.
Yep.
And so it's both. It's really like being able to trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust what feels good to you, and then moving from there. I think that's like a key. And yeah, that hiding in that like hermit shell can be really comfortable, right? It can be very like, oh, I'm just gonna like hide and I'll just journal about this and I'll just like stay in my little shell, and I won't actually like take the Jupiter and Aries action. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, following and trusting and knowing that if you're getting the hit, if your intuition is kicking in, that is because the flight pattern is clear for takeoff. It's clear right now. The weather is going to change. The traffic is going to change. So follow it when you get the hit, even if it doesn't make sense. Like back to the intuition. Just because it doesn't make a head logic doesn't mean it's not time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And there's something too about, like you said, like acting on it when it comes, because things change. And sometimes we're like waiting for the perfect moment, or we're like waiting for the perfect conditions. But it's like there actually was something, like a little piece that you could get from that that'll lead you to the next piece. And so sometimes we can just be in this waiting and holding place. Like we could be in that forever,
Yeah.
So
and the perfect conditions are when you get the hit, not when the weather is clear. There were plenty of planes taking off here this morning, despite the fact that it was supposed to rain. It didn't rain, but it was supposed to rain. And if those planes would have waited, that would have shifted the timing for everything. So when you get the clearance, just go, because your clearance is your divine signal that the timing is perfect. Even if our little heads, or even if our little monkey minds are like, oh, but I don't have enough of this, and I got to do this, and the fucking kitchen isn't clean. Just go.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a wisdom in the timing of it. That's beyond what we can, right, understand. And yeah, we're really good at distracting ourselves. We're really good at like, oh, we need to clean the kitchen. We're guilty. And like you said, that's the perfect time, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So all of this is as the moon is waning, we're kind of moving into that new moon phase. So we're in this releasing, letting go phase. And then on the 28th, July 28th, we have the new moon in Leo. So that's that new cycle beginning. It's at 5 degrees of Leo at 1:55 p.m. Eastern. So you can take a look at your chart, see what you have going on in early Leo, also see what you have going on in the other fixed signs, because those will be aspected pretty strongly, which would be Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio. So anyway, new moon in Leo, right? So it's this new beginning. And that same day, what?
Just I was chatting with someone recently, and I was like, so yeah, things are gonna get rough. Like I remember 2020 when it was like, it felt like thing after thing, but the thing after thing was actually spaced out. And we were all like, it feels like so much. And then 2020 happened and they were closer. And the thing I've been noticing in the themes of this year is like, there's a new moon and this and this and this and this and this. There's a full moon and this. So the intensity and the frequency is increasing. So I was just laughing about there's a new moon, and so take it away.
And the stuff around it. Yeah. And that same day, Jupiter goes retrograde. So Jupiter's been a big player this year because we had that Neptune Jupiter conjunction in April, which was really about expanding what we believe could be possible. And then we had Jupiter move out of Pisces into Aries to begin to like see the places where we can take action. But it's not done because Jupiter's going to go retrograde on this day of the new moon, move backwards through Aries, and then finish up the remainder of the year in Pisces. So this backward motion of Jupiter is really important because we're kind of backtracking. We're reviewing the past few months. And then when he moves back into Pisces in the end of October of this year is when we really finish up some of those like big potential things that we kind of saw earlier in the year. So yeah, that Jupiter retrograde is happening at 8 degrees of Aries. And so that's pretty big. It's a pretty big shift of this forward motion of Aries. And now we're in the going backwards and kind of reviewing and going over what we've experienced the past few months. And there's still this, Jupiter and Aries energy of we can still do and take action and all of that. But there's this like reflecting on and almost like seeing things from a different perspective now as he shifts and moves back towards Pisces. And he's also like, yeah, we're going to go back. We're good. Like the year is not over. There's more. And so you can feel as he shifts back, it's like, it's not done. Like we're still going to finish up this expansion that we started at the beginning of the year. And so he'll be retrograde until November, till like the end of November. So he's a bigger planet and that has a longer retrograde period. But that's pretty significant. And that happens on the new moon in Leo. And they're aspected. So it's 5 degrees, 8 degrees. So that would be a trine of Jupiter and this new moon. So it feels like this new cycle with Leo that's really connected to the heart, really connected to our passion. Jupiter is like, as he's going back, he's like, has everything that you've been doing been heart connected? Are you really into everything you're doing? And maybe it can even be better. Maybe it can be even better than like what you thought. Let me show you. And so that's what this we're kind of moving into. And so it's interesting that that happens on the day of that new moon.
Yeah, I also want to bring up the thing about Jupiter moving between Pisces and Aries, Aries and Pisces, Pisces and Aries, is that Jupiter is going to be pinging the world point. So 0 degrees of Aries is what's called the world point. And Jupiter pinged it when he moved into Aries, but now he's going to back up over it. And with Jupiter stationing retrograde, we had Pluto station retrograde, we had Saturn station retrograde, we had Neptune station retrograde, Chiron stations retrograde today at, in the 11 o'clock hour, conjunct the moon. Again, the moon is involved in this. Like there is such a feeling piece of it. And then we've got Jupiter stationing retrograde. So we've got 5 major bodies. Uranus, he gets a ticket. He is not going to be stationing retrograde in 2022. He gets a free pass. He is just doing forward motion. But these bodies are often referenced as like a symbol and a real energetic push towards the collective. Mercury, Venus, Mars are our personal planets. But once we get past Mars into Jupiter and out, we're really looking at this collective energy. And if we look around, it kind of feels like the collective is moving backwards, to kind of reviewing. And there are a lot of feels about the whole thing. And it just feels so important to feel all the feels so that we can clean this out, especially with Chiron stationing retrograde today. This is a deepening into the collective wound. So with these bodies all going backwards, while Jupiter crosses the world point again, there is potential and potency around what are we going to see replaying itself? Because of course, when we've got a retrograde, we're reviewing things, we're revisiting, we're replaying. We can have the option to renovate. We've got options here. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen as Jupiter expands the world point. And then I know when he moves back into Aries, when he starts going direct, he spends like 10 days at the end of December hovering on the world point.
He had just stationed, so he's moving slower at that point.
Yes.
Right.
So he's moving really slow.
The end of the year.
Yes. And, we've been watching big end of the year astrological events happen for the past few years. And Jupiter, like the king of the gods, the guy who expands everything in reality because he's kept in check by Saturn. I'm just really curious as to what's going to happen at the end of the year when Jupiter, our friend Jupiter, is like, and now I'm going to hang out on the world point for like 10 days. See what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And especially because we're in the middle, like we haven't even finished out his stay in Pisces. Usually Jupiter is in a sign for about a year, but we haven't finished out, right, that piece of Pisces. And what was coming as you were talking about, a mentor of mine recently said, the deeper we feel, the more we can expand, which makes so much sense. And it's so true. And it feels like that's that piece that you spoke about of like the moon is involved in all of this. It's like we can't just think our way through things anymore. And if you are, it's getting really hard and it will only get harder. And so it's like we need to feel deeply. And of course, we always have choice, you don't have to. But where we're headed, like where the ease is in feeling and expanding. Like it's both. And yeah, just to review some of the dates too, just to kind of give us this Jupiter context, because we talked about a couple. So just to kind of go go through it again, we had basically Jupiter was in Pisces the start of the year. So 2022, we started with Jupiter in Pisces. Then in May, on May 10th was when Jupiter moved into Aries. So you can also feel into that period from like mid-May until now, because he's going to be right moving back over this beginning like part of Aries. What has been going on since mid-May for you, and whatever you've been creating, doing, are you really in love with it? Like, is this really in line with your vision? Is this really like where you want to go? Because that's what we're going to be moving back through, right? Like, is that really in that expansion, or are you just doing things? And maybe they felt really great, like, right, back in May, but things change. And so we're getting to review, we're getting to go back over that. And especially because this is happening in Leo season, like, is it really a passion? Is it connected to the heart? So we get to look at all of that. And then he'll move back into Pisces on October 28th, where he'll finish out those last few months of the year in Pisces. And we'll get kind of those last pieces of the story there. And then he'll station direct on November 23rd, where he'll eventually move out back into Aries for good on December 20th. And then, like you said, he's going to be staying at that beginning point, that 0 point of Aries for a bit. So
yeah, I think it's the 20th to the 29th.
Yeah. So basically the end of the year. So that's kind of the Jupiter, just to go over those dates again, like, 2022, it was a lot of Jupiter in Pisces, but he also spent a really good amount of time in Aries. And so those two energies are kind of the, like, Pisces is about like the infinite. Pisces is like, there's infinite possibilities and you are infinite. And then we move into Aries and it's like, okay, and what do we do with that? But again, we're still just in the middle. So really having that curiosity and being open and just being really true to what you want. And that like passion and heart connection of Leo season while we're there, right?
Yeah. It's good. It's juicy. I'm excited to see what happens because I like watching what happens.
Always, yes. And also around that time, we're not done yet, because 2 days later, or 2 days later, 3 days later, Uranus makes an exact conjunction with the North Node. Now they are going to be already in this aspect for that new moon. So everything we've been talking about, like, it's all happening. It's just the exact day when Uranus and the North Node meet exactly is on July 31st. This is a big one. This is a big aspect. The last time that they were conjunct, Uranus and the North Node, was March, April in 2007 in Pisces. So this aspect doesn't happen too often. And Uranus and North Node definitely does not happen too often. I don't have the date on that, but long time. I'll see if I can look it up more.
What were you doing in 2007? I can tell you that was when I like quit my job and totally revamped like my whole existence.
Yeah. Yeah. So like look back to 2007, because that's when Uranus and the North Node, the last time that they were conjunct. Different energy though. It was in Pisces, right? So different energy. Taurus has a very like based in reality, like rooted, connected to the earth, connected to our bodies. So it's going to be, yeah. And we've been in this because we're moving towards this aspect. Is
they've been in orb for a while, haven't they?
Yeah. And so we're recording, today is what, the 19th, July 19th?
July 19th.
And they are 1 degree away. So like we're in it and
they're hanging out.
Yeah.
They're past the point of making plans.
Yeah.
They're hanging out. They just haven't gotten into bed yet.
Right. And so we're building to that, like that peak point when they meet. But we're in it. And so that's a pretty intense energy, because Uranus brings radical truth, and he brings this like electric, like there's a life force energy to it. It brings this like electric, like just truth, this radical truth of like we're alive. We only have we have this short time on earth. Like, what are you going to do with it? Right. And it's just such this electric energy that Uranus brings. And then to meet up with the North Node, which is about like our purpose and our North Star of where we're going, like those two together, it's big. And I feel like that's what we've been in. So if you've been feeling like, you know, any kind of friction around what isn't serving, what isn't like connected to that purpose in that North Node, what isn't like, even when we talk about like that heart connection for you, what isn't that is getting louder, because we're moving to this point where it's like literally like electrocuting us into life. And it's like anything that isn't, you know, what we're meant to be doing, what isn't really us, can start to feel really uncomfortable. Because that's another piece with the North Node is it's not comfortable. It pushes us outside of our comfort zone, because it's like, this is where we want to go, where we truly want to go. It's just not comfortable because we humans often like staying in our comfort zone, right? Like our nervous systems just like to know what's going on, which is okay. But in order to expand, in order to grow, we need to sometimes be pushed a little bit, just a little bit outside of our comfort zone. And that's what the North Node does. So when you have this big, like electric lightning bolt energy to that, it can feel a little bit uncomfortable as we're moving towards it. But as you keep connecting into like what you love, your vision, like the things that really light you up, like also looking at like progress you made, like look how far you've come. Because I bet everybody listening to this was a radically different person even just a few years ago. Right. So like all of those pieces are good reminders, because when we're in it, sometimes it can feel just like, what is going on? So yeah. Also looking at, it happens at 18 degrees of Taurus. So looking, you know, if you have anything going on around there.
Mid-fixed signs, again, like visiting your fixed signs. We're looking at Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio. The other piece that is happening with this North Node Taurus conjunction is that Mars and Kali conjunct at 17 degrees of Taurus, just to really make sure that, you know, all the beds in the room are filled with these pairings. Just next door, Mars and Kali are going to be coming together, and Kali is the destroyer of ego. So I'm tying into what Alexis said. If you're just moving at stuff because it makes sense, or your head is involved, or it feels safe, those are all ego pieces. And there's times when safety is important and valuable. And there are times when we need to take action and move towards that heart calling. And as scary as it can be to move towards the heart call, that's oftentimes going to be your safest bet. And it, what are we giggling about, Alexis?
I'm just seeing like a scene from Braveheart or something, where it's like Mars, Kali, North Node, Uranus. It's like just this forward, yes, like I can just see it, and it's like that's what we're in, people. And if like you're like, yes, I'm like gonna, like it might be uncomfortable, but I'm gonna have the courage. I'm just gonna like go for it. Like it's exhilarating and it's amplifying. If not, like there's a stampede also energy to, like if you're just like that Braveheart energy, right? Like
yes, and like calling in that Mars energy, that high, and Mars's oldest energy, he was an agrarian god. He was not this god, this like aggressive, messy god of war. He was an agrarian god about our passion and our desire for growth. He was an agrarian god because he's the passion that is held in the seed that moves it to break out of its shell. so as Alexis is saying, like, it is this courage, it is this bravery, and even working with Mars in his warrior form, the highest form of the warrior is coming at yourself, is recognizing the only people we battle are ourselves. And that loyalty thread, that, no man left behind thread, that nobody gets left behind, and we rise as a whole, is kind of also that, like, and we're all gonna go. And yes, some may come kicking and screaming, some may decide that their contract here is done and they have no interest in rising with this. Because there we have that Kali energy. She is going to take out and cut away what is preventing, slowing down, stopping the rise.
And there's this fierce love with Kali.
Mm-hmm.
And also thinking about Mars, like the word like heart warrior, right? It's like being so committed to really yourself. That's what this is all about. Like devoted to yourself and your growth. And there's this fierce love that comes with all of it. Like you can really feel even Uranus at the highest expression is just this like high vibration of love. Kali is this fierce, like big mama love. And Mars is this heart connected, like I will fight for what I love energy. And so when you feel all of that, like all in its highest expression, like there's no stopping that. There is no stopping that. And so all you have to do is just tune into your heart, tune into what you love, and allow that energy to carry you, because it really can, right? Like we can go kicking and screaming.
We can.
Or we can just be like, I am just going to see where this energy takes me, because that is some big energy. And so really this is all happening around this new moon in Leo. Like my heart right now, I can just feel it. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's big. And when you feel into all of that, like, and they're all an aspect, like Jupiter. So if it's a new moon, it's the sun and the moon together. Jupiter's in a trine to that, like expanding. Basically, like the sun and the moon are intuitive and are like feminine, and our radiance and our masculine and that outward energy, right? So you take it together. The new moon, right, is when they come together. Jupiter bringing the expansion, and then you have those aspects that we talked about with Mars and Kali. Like it's a lot of big players in there, and Uranus, of course, in the North Node. But they're all aspect to each other, right? So we have like Jupiter over in Aries, kind of hitting all of this that's happening in Taurus, and the new moon is happening in Leo. So the moon, the sun, and Leo are in a trine. And then we have the North Node, which is those four things we talked about: Uranus, the North Node, the Mars, and Kali. All
there.
Four of those together. Yeah, we got there. All four of those together. We got Jupiter, the sun, and the moon happening together, and they're all happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. Right? So you can feel like there's all this interplay between them, and like the energy and the potency of that you can just really allow it. If you, that's a word that feels like important here, is like allow it to open you and to like help move you, rather than if you're trying to be in the mind, like you can feel like none of this is about the mind.
No, this is so heart. There is so, like, we come roaring into Leo season with all of this heart stuff going on, with this big Venus Jupiter square, and then this Leo new moon where Jupiter is there, and then Uranus North Node, Mars, Kali. There's so much heart going into it. And I just am left feeling really curious, like what happens if we all are moving from a heart space, as scary as that is, like I am not for one single second saying moving from heart is not scary, because it certainly is. We have such a cultural idea that we need to, that our hearts are somehow fragile things that can't be put back together, and that we're here for them to not be broken. Like that one of our imperatives is to keep that heart whole. Don't break it. Don't do anything to screw it up. And that's when we screw it up. It is when we don't open it, because we're shutting down and we're constricting and we're keeping it small out of fear that it's going to hurt. And it's okay if it hurts.
Right.
We can do that.
Right. That's that's what we're here for. We're here for a little bit of risk and a little bit of, right.
Little
And
road rash.
That's a question to ask, is like, is this coming from fear or love?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like that's always a great question to just tune into. Right. Because it'll always be one or the other. And so then the next day on August 1st is when Mars and the North Node hit exact. So like we said, they're all there. They're all within a degree. It's all happening. But August 1st is when Mars, the North Node, and Uranus hit exactly together. So that's just that whole period, the end of July to the beginning of August. It's a biggie. And like I said, it can be beautiful. It can be like just so much love, this like fierce love that is there. But it can also be a little bit intense. And I don't even know what's going to happen collectively. Like, who knows? But we'll see.
It can also be a little bit intense.
Just a little.
We've all been training for this. Like anybody who's in Earth school right now has been training for this. And those that aren't training, and if they decide that they're done, it's okay. Love them real hard. They're doing their best, and we're gonna be watching things shift. We're in a massive change right now.
Yeah. Yep, we are. And there's no air signs involved in this. There's no, like, the mind doesn't get to really have a piece in it. Which
there's
I think
fire, there's earth. Fire, earth.
Yep, a lot of fire, a lot of earth. No air, no mind.
No mind.
So then on August 4th, we have Mercury moving into Virgo. So Mercury will be moving out of Leo. So we get Mercury and Leo for all of that at the end of Leo, which also feels like when planets are transitioning, there's always this like last push. So Mercury and Leo, those beginning of August days, there will be some last messages of, it almost feels like the aftermath of these big, the new moon, the conjunction, like all of these pieces. It feels like Mercury, those like first few days of August will have some last like kind of pieces to just
like the investigative reporters have done the work, and they're sharing the things that have come up as a result of the event.
Yeah.
A bigger, wholer, more complete picture.
Yes. It's like watching the news after something happened, but we're not watching the news. We're just listening to ourselves.
Yeah.
And listening to the messages and all of that.
Yeah. And, Mercury really blew through Leo, like at top speed, because Mercury enters Leo today. And we're looking at August 4th as the day that Mercury is like, peace out, Leo. Hey, Virgo.
Yeah, and he's home in Virgo. So he's going to be moving into a sign where he's home. So that's another piece as we move into Mercury and Virgo. It feels like there is this like collecting of information with Virgo. like almost like I'm seeing like spreadsheets and like like gathering the information. It's almost like continuing that aftermath, because it's such a big energy that we're experiencing with that new moon and the Uranus North Node conjunction, that when Mercury, that those last pieces of Leo, right, we'll have some last messages there. And then as he moves into Virgo, like we're still almost analyzing what happened. We're still kind of, right, like integrating. And Mercury in Virgo feels supportive for that, because although Virgo is an earth sign, there is still some, you know, Mercury brings some of the mental, communicative like pieces, and Virgo is about kind of analyzing and right, understanding. So we get that energy with Mercury and Virgo beginning August 4th, which also feels supportive to everything that we experienced at the end of July. So we have that again, August 4th, Mercury in Virgo.
Mercury is going to show up and alphabetize the fuck out of everything. Very like boots on the ground. All the books are going to get alphabetized and your email is going to get cleaned out so that you've got a real clear sense of what happened.
Right. Yep. Yes. Which feels helpful, right?
Mm-hmm. Some boots on the ground Mercury action.
We do. We need it. We need it. A few days later, on August 7th, we have Mars conjunct Saturn, which also feels like getting some things in order. I'm sorry, not conjunct. They're in different signs. Mars in Taurus squaring Saturn in Aquarius. Is that right? Let me just pull it up.
I feel better about that. Yes, that's correct.
It should be in a square that day.
Yeah, that's correct. I was looking at you silly over the conjunct. Square is correct.
Yes. What did I say? August 7th. Let me just pull it up. Yeah, so we have Saturn at 22 degrees of Aquarius, and Mars will be at 22 degrees of Taurus. So they'll be in a square. So that feels like more of, Saturn's really about bringing things like in. And so Mars is bringing that spark. He's kind of igniting. And that can be a challenge because Mars is not that. Mars is like the initiatory. He's like, let's ignite, let's like, right, start things. And again, it can come from that really heart connection. But then also Saturn is like, okay, but we need to like rein it in a little bit, and we need to like actually put it together and make it happen. Because otherwise you're just going to be starting a million things. Right. And so it feels like Saturn's kind of reining in some of that energy, because it's basically squaring that whole little grouping of the North Node, Uranus, Mars, and then Saturn and Mars, when they square exactly, it's like, okay, now let's rein it in. So you can feel like with Mercury and Virgo, kind of like, okay, now let's kind of like make sense of what's happening. Saturn kind of reining it in, being like, okay, and let's actually like be able to make something out of this. Because otherwise it's just a lot of, stuff and it doesn't really mean anything. Saturn's kind of bringing the like meaning and like, what does this mean? And kind of bringing it down. So that again, on August 7th, Mars square Saturn.
It also feels that because both Mars and Saturn are in fixed signs, there is that ability that Taurus has to slow Mars down and be like, yes, ignite this. And so there feels like because of the signs they're in, there's extra support behind Saturn saying, hey, like, let's see this through before you run off to the next thing. You're in Taurus right now. We're going to keep you in Taurus and we're going to slow you down a little bit, Mars, so that you can bring that passion and that fire and that ignition to not only igniting this, but spending some time with it. And as far as like working with Saturn, I like to say that squares we make a square when we sit with our feet on the floor and our butt in a chair. And when we stand up, that is that square energy working to overcome and create an opportunity out of an obstacle.
And as I'm looking at Taurus, so like all of this is happening in Taurus, which is a Venus ruled sign. So when I looked at, oh, like where is Venus? Venus is aspecting all of this too. So while all of this is happening in Venus's home sign on her home turf, she's in Cancer, but she's still like looking at it like they're in an aspect. She's still like touching in and bringing that piece of Venus is so much about like the ability to love and to be in love with our lives and to really be tuned in to like what we're experiencing. There's that like tangible piece to Venus. She's not about like just the dreaming. She's like, she wants to live the life. Like she wants to do the things. Like she wants to have all of the things that she wants to have. And so as she's looking at all this happening, there is this very like feminine quality that's being brought into. She's in Cancer, which is that's kind of softer sign. And so she's involved too. Because a lot of the energies that we've been talking about are like Mars is bringing in like an intensity, and there's some of these like outward energies. And so it feels like that just Venus is like, hey, I'm there too. I'm kind of like, I'm kind of watching it, and I'm kind of like, right, involved, but not in it, is kind of what Venus has going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an extent of everyone in Taurus is checking in with Venus because they're in her house.
Right.
They're doing the stuff in her house. And while she's not home, they're still checking in with her to be like, hey, we're having a party at your house. Are you cool? Like, what do we need to do to make this right? So there very much is everyone in Taurus is checking in with Venus to make sure that all their I's are dotted and their T's are crossed.
Right. And both Venus and Taurus are about our bodies, about our connection to ourselves and our self-worth, money. So all of those things can be coming up. All of these themes that are very much Taurus themes are going to be ignited. And then because Venus is involved too, like what is your relationship to these things? Like, what is your relationship to money? It's one of the biggest energies like on the planet. What is your relationship to it? Right. Are your relationship to your body? Like, this is your vessel to be here. Like, this is, without it, you wouldn't be here. Right. What is your relationship to your body and to your worthiness and to all of these pieces? Like, that's a lot of stuff that can be coming up around this time. And tuning into and knowing your relationship with those parts is going to make all the other pieces that are going to be coming up, right? We're able to move through them because we are connected to these pieces and understand our relationship to these pieces. So those, again, just to drop in some themes that might be coming up. Mm-hmm. Those are definitely Taurus and Venus themes.
What's on the docket next after Mars and Saturn square off?
Well, on August 8th, we have Lionsgate, which I always love. A good Lionsgate each year. So that's August 8th. I don't know if you have any pieces you want to share on Lionsgate, but that just...
For those that don't know, Lionsgate is the rising of Sirius, which is Isis, the star that the Egyptians associated with Isis. And while we have culturally decided it's on 8/8, it can, depending on where you are in the world, there's like a 2+ week window in which Sirius can rise, depending on, of course, on where you are geographically. And it's this time of abundance. It is Isis returning to Egypt to bring back the abundance, to return with, Horus, the son that she and Osiris procreated after his remembering. And it's a time that Isis remembers her kind of responsibility and her bounty and her commitment to the land that she and Osiris were given. So it's this time of expansion. It's once again this like very heart time. Isis is remembering her love for the land that she was driven out of when she went into hiding, to hide from evil brother Set. And it's a good time to be playing with your abundance as Isis, this soul shaman energy is rising. Any women that are looking to really dive into it, I have a retreat going on leading up to Lionsgate. We close on 7/7, but we open on 7/7, on 8/7. We open on 8/4. So there are still spaces left for those that want to join us. I start pulling astrology reports for the women this week. Everybody gets an astrological mission for the weekend.
I love it. Yeah, so we have that on the 8th, and again, like you said, it's kind of that period around that time. It's kind of like this portal of like 2 weeks, but that's that date. And I always find it's like this really potent time of creation and just tuning in. And yeah, it's a really potent time. And it
I
falls
asked for a cat a couple Lionsgates ago. I got one.
You did.
He thinks he's a dog and he failed cat school, but I got a cat.
You definitely got a cat. And this Lionsgate comes close to the full moon. So on August 11th, we have a full moon in Aquarius at 19 degrees of Aquarius at 9:35 p.m. It's aspecting Saturn, Uranus, and the nodes. So some of those pieces that we've been working with. Just another illumination. Like we're not done, and you can kind of feel that with, because the Uranus and the North Node, they're in that aspect for a while. There's kind of like a roller coaster. Like there's the ebbs and the flows, and this full moon is another peak kind of point of that. So yeah, August 11th, we get a full moon. Right, just bringing that illumination, bringing that like kind of peak, the pieces that we need to know, the insights, and that big energy. It does feel like a big one.
Yeah, it feels it's juicy.
It is, yeah. So that's kind of the big stuff. Like we covered like the big stuff there. Another piece is that just before or just at the end of Leo season, Mars enters Gemini. So we get Mars leaving Taurus on August 20th, and Mars enters Gemini. So just a little bit of a change of pace for Mars and what he's igniting and activating. And we get some of that curiosity and the mind food of Gemini. So our mind gets to come, you get to kind of tune back into the mind and kind of come back around to those ideas and the insights. Now that we've kind of been in this big energy, we've kind of let things settle. We've had that full moon, which is another peak. Then we get Mars moving into Gemini, kind of bringing some of that mind food for us. Just at the end of Leo season, because then the sun will move into Virgo on August 22nd. So, and as planets move out of their signs, depending on what sign it is, they may aspect Pluto, and Mars does. He will be in a trine to Pluto just before he moves out of Taurus. And so we get some depth there, right? We get that, like, not only is Mars kind of giving us the last pieces of Taurus as he moves out, but he meets up with Pluto, who is like, yeah, let's really kind of go deep into everything that we've experienced around this whole month, because we've been in this big Taurus activation. So we get on August 14th, Mars trine Pluto. And that's kind of some of those last pieces before Mars moves out of Taurus. And then, yeah, again, on August 20th, Mars enters Gemini.
Giddy up, people. Get
Yeah,
your heart out, polish it up, let it shine.
Yeah,
Get out your lion courage.
The big piece is definitely that Uranus North Node conjunction is a big one. And then that full moon feels like another like peak in the wave. Those are kind of right. Those like mark your calendars.
Just
Around
mark your
that.
calendars, check in, see how you're doing.
Yeah. And then we get Lionsgate, you know, just to like bring more energy there. So yeah, I kind of, the things I have circled on my list are the Jupiter retrograde, Uranus conjunct the North Node, which those happen very close together, and then the full moon in Aquarius. Like those are the things that I have circled that feel like the highlights of Leo season.
The highlights of Leo season.
Yeah.
Because every season needs a highlight.
Especially
Wonderful.
Leo. Leo is all about like that spotlight.
Yes.
Like Leo definitely, the Leo season for sure needs a spotlight.
Yes, Leo absolutely needs the spotlight. Any last pieces before we sign off for Leo season?
That's it. I mean, there's some, we covered a lot. There's some big stuff. So I think, yeah, I think that's all I got.
All right. Happy Leo season, and we'll see you again soon.